It was supposed to be the Democrats' ace in the hole, the fail-safe strategy meant to serve as kind of an insurance policy against a red wave. But in a couple of closely watched races, the controversial tactic of Democrats boosting far-right Republican candidates appears to be on the verge of blowing up big time. In 6 races across the country this year, Democrats actually paid money, meaning used campaign dollars, to help extreme right-wing candidates to victory in their primaries against more moderate Republican opponents. In some cases, they spent millions, and even tens of millions, to help the extremist prevail and give the Democrat a supposedly easier opponent in the general election. At least so they thought. Now, it's worked, it seems, in a few of them. But now 2 of the 6 extreme candidates Democrats supported could be on the cusp of stunning victories, one of which could tip the balance of power in the entire Senate. The Senate Majority PAC, which is aligned with Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, spent $3.2 million boosting the candidacy of retired Army Brigadier General Don Bolduc, a far-right candidate for Senate New Hampshire. Throughout his primary campaign, Bolduc insisted the 2020 election was stolen. Then he flipped the day after winning his party's nomination in an attempt to win over more moderate voters. And it appears to be succeeding. He's all but wiped out what was nearly a 10-point deficit in the Real Clear Politics average, is now within about a half a point of Senator Maggie Hassan, in a race that, based on the momentum, many believe Bolduc will now win. And Democrats could also lose to an extremist candidate they helped elevate in Michigan, where far-right Republican John Gibbs is trailing his Democratic opponent Hillary Scholten by a point in the latest projection from the election forecasting website 538. The Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee dropped nearly $500,000 to boost Gibbs. Committee Chair Sean Patrick Maloney coming under fire over the decision to spend that money helping an extremist Republican potentially get close to elected office. But Maloney's standing behind the move.
Hillary Scholten, who's a great candidate, is going to beat him like a drum. We thought he was an easier candidate, and he has proven to be, because he's a nut and he's too conservative for Western Michigan.
A few months back, Maloney on this show defended the broader strategy as sound politics.
Look, I run the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee, and I want to win elections. My job is to hold the House because I believe the moral imperative right now is to keep dangerous MAGA Republicans who would end our democracy from holding the gavels and being in power. And that's where my focus is. And everything we do at the DCCC is designed to keep dangerous MAGA Republicans from controlling the House.
And yet maybe, thanks to his group, John Gibbs could be sworn into the United States Congress in January, at the expense of Congressman Peter Meijer, a moderate who was one of only 10 Republicans to vote for the impeachment of Donald Trump after January 6th. Even Carrie Lake was a beneficiary of this gambit. The Democratic Party in Arizona sent out a mailer during her primary confirming that her opponent had donated to Democrats, thanking her for the thousands of dollars she'd given to Democratic candidates over the years. It was a clear effort to help put the more extreme Lake and what they thought would be easier to beat over the top. Look, these races in which Democrats meddled were supposed to be no-brainers. When you're talking about Democrats putting millions of dollars behind a Republican, it better work. In Michigan and New Hampshire, it's looking increasingly like it may not. That leaves a whole lot of Democrats with egg on their face and may leave what we call the marginalized moderate majority, who would have been perfectly happy with a moderate Republican winning, instead stuck with extremists in power. Joining me now, Nomiki Konst. She is a progressive activist who chaired the Democratic National Committee's Unity Commission in 2016. Thanks so much for coming back on the show. We appreciate it. All right, so I think that you agree that this was a terrible tactic, correct?
There's an old rule in politics: never repeat your opponent's message. And I'll add to that, don't use the well-earned donor money that you travel around the country raising all year round to repeat your opponent's message. We know in political science what works. It seems like the Democratic Party is doing everything they can do at this moment to not do what works.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation on your cable provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.